we are at that time when a great transition takes place. If we have a good look at our solar system and how it works, for instance, the moon goes around the Earth in turn is rotating and orbiting the Sun. So it takes 365 days to go around the Sun. Now our Sun in turn is orbiting Sirius. Sirius being the brightest star in the sky and in the sector of Cancer, right near Gemini. It is in a binary with our star. And every 24,000 years we go around each other in a clockwise motion. Sirius and our Sun have been going away from each other for the last couple of thousand years, and now they've turned the corner, so they're heading towards one another. As we reach the outer limits of that orbit, that elliptical orbit with our Sun and Sirius, this is where the Iron Age is. The Golden Age is when they are close to each other, and then as they separate, they go through the Silver and the Bronze to the Iron Age. Well, that affects the consciousness of mankind, because we have 100% consciousness when the two stars are close to each other. The consciousness falls to 75%, 50% and 25%. We've not enjoyed full consciousness for a long time, and many of the gifts and abilities and powers that we once had. As we have turned the corner in the great orbit of our two suns, Sirius and our Sun, as we have turned the corner and they are hurtling towards each other now, we have turned the corner from the Dark Ages. We've come out of the dark period because the suns have been pulled apart and their influence is weakened, and therefore our consciousness has dropped, and we're in the Dark Ages. Now they're pulling towards each other, bringing us to a higher consciousness, and that's nature. Nature brings us, ascends, helps us, and carries us through the ascension process. So it's all loving. Even though there's chaos and there's fear and anguish and chaotic events occurring around us in our world, even though that is happening, that's really just the remnants of the Dark Ages. So we've turned the corner. The two suns are hurtling towards each other at great speeds now, and that's the beautiful part of where we are. We've turned the corner, so we're really in just a great time in history to be living. It's just an amazing time. The great changes that we will see with our own eyes will just be stupendous.
We are actually just simply locked into a series of cycles, and it's the duty of every human being, when they're ready, to discover their own awareness, to take control of themselves.
What is getting ready to happen is a positive thing. It's a step forward in an evolution. It's an awakening in consciousness. We have to go along with the change that's happening, as opposed to fear it and resist it.
What is happening at this moment is discussed in all the Bibles and mythologies of the world. The ancient ones knew the cycles. The Hindus call these cycles the Yuga cycle of 24,000 years, in which we go through the gold, silver, bronze and iron age, just like we go through the yearly summer, winter, and the daily night and day. So we do this in the 24,000 year backward processional cycle. And we are at what the prophecies say is the time of the harvest, the time of the end of this wave of evolution of mankind, where certain ones ascend, awaken, remember who they are and reclaim their divinity.
And we are now passing through a period in which an acceleration of consciousness is taking place.
Everybody's benefiting from these finer conscious levels that we are arriving at, simply by means of where the sun is taking us.
The Earth itself is a conscious living entity. We're getting ready to evolve at a very fast rate. The reason this happens is because the center of the galaxy puts out pulses. If everyone starts to find out that this, what 2012 really is about, then that's going to accelerate the process even more. They're going to start catching on to the truth of what's happening.
So if human nature starts to change, that means everything moves off the peg of expectation of normal.
The new paradigm, right?
New paradigm. That's right. If you heard the term the shift, it has to do with the 2012. That's actually an astronomy measurement. It's called the precession of the equinoxes, and the indigenous called it, the Mayan calendar called it, and it has to do with moving into another cycle of the planet. It represents a 26,000-year wobble. So if you talk to indigenous people, they're all about cycles. Everything's cycles, cycles, cycles. And this is one of the major cycles. We weren't really supposed to get here. If you know, I mean, I grew up with Revelation and World War III and the whole thing. That's all been transmuted. We're beyond that now, and we are in this new cycle, and that cycle represents the shift. That cycle is an enhanced, evolved consciousness for mankind.
Now we've been in that sign, the sun has been in it at the equinox for 2,000 years. Now it's right at the end of Pisces, and the new sign coming through is Aquarius, and the sun will be in Aquarius for 2,000 years.
Each age is about approximately 2,000 years. Each age represents a kind of a level of consciousness, and at each shift there's a shift in consciousness.
The super consciousness is we merge with the divine, merge with all consciousness, and we know everything. We come into the oneness.
If there's a wave of consciousness that is sent out from the center of the galaxy and we pass through one of these waves, then the consciousness on the planet as a whole begins to expand and vibrate at a higher frequency, evolve much faster than previously before.
Everything in creation is the same energy, and energy is consciousness, energy consciousness. So we're looking at creation being one gigantic consciousness, one gigantic mind, of which we are all part. So we're like droplets of water in an ocean of consciousness. We're individual to a certain extent, but all together we make up the whole.
There's this illusion that we're something else. But in truth, all we are is consciousness observing the manifestations of consciousness dance before our eyes. We are all the same person watching ourselves from different viewpoints, from different attitudes, from different environments.
The most important thing I'd like to say to people is to know who you are, reclaim your sovereignty, and learn the science of as above, so below, the macrocosm and the microcosm, because we are a microcosm of the universe, of the whole universe. Our body is the universe.
Somehow we have this wrong idea that we have to do that by going out there and building it. You don't go out there to build it, you go in here to build it. You find it in here first and just allow it to radiate out around you. And everything else then naturally happens by itself.
As people begin to awaken and take on responsibility, we can expect to see a much more harmonious world.
It's just a ride, and we can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice. No effort, no work, no job, no savings of money. A choice right now between fear and love.
Those who identify with the darkness, those who feel at home and comfortable with it, yeah, they want to keep it that way. They don't want things to change. They're afraid of light coming in. They're afraid of people waking up.
In the book of Daniel of the Bible, it says that in this time many will come to an accurate knowledge of the truth, and they will whiten their robes, and they will turn to the truth. But it also mentions that many will just go off into the darkness and continue on the path of darkness.
And the dead that shall arise, that the scriptures talk about, the dead shall rise, that's not dead in terms of in the tomb and then all of a sudden pop up out of the tomb as literalist Christianity try and teach. It's talking about that we have been dead in sleepfulness. We have been sleeping. Now as we learn this stuff and we remember the symbols now because we know what these mean, they've been lying dormant in the winter of unconsciousness for thousands of years. And the Romans went destroying the temples of Egypt and defacing their monuments and the hieroglyphs that they didn't understand. And the Christians, you know, they destroyed the Mediterranean's cultural, spiritual, hermetic heritage. Alexandria, the library was burnt. Israel, in Jerusalem, the temple of the initiates there was destroyed. Carthage, you know, she snuffed out all the lights so that she could rule in a fictional world for thousands of years. Now as we awaken and we reclaim our dominion, this science is essential. Astrology is the science of as above, so below. And it is the beginning of understanding who you are. When you realise that you are this, and you look up and you go, twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. You know what the stars are. They're fountains of life.
Society has allowed itself to be dumbed down. I mean, we're just as much to blame as they are for allowing it to happen. But unfortunately, there is an awakening happening now and people are starting to wake up.
People are becoming more conscious of the fact that we need to change our habits and improve and take responsibility.
That force, which is contracting awareness and consciousness, I think is starting to get a little bit nervous and a little bit afraid. It's worried, and because it seems like it's upscaling things, you know, as this consciousness revolution is starting to occur, it's upping the ante on its side of the scale too. It sees this awakening happening and it's very threatened by it. And it doesn't want it to happen. So greater and greater measures are taken.
The elites and the power families realise that they are losing their grip on the system. The system is collapsing. And so they, naturally, like every organism, are trying to prolong their existence. Therefore, they try to keep the fear out there, but a lot of people are just not buying into it. And the reason being is because our sun is bringing us into the higher essences, the higher consciousness. And therefore, we refuse to go back. We can't. We can just climb up now.
What was a kind of a willing, complacent dumbing down is now getting ready to turn into a big conflict between the forces in control who want to keep everybody as they were and this consciousness revolution who can't possibly exist on that level now that their eyes are open.
We don't need their services. War, drugs, terrorism comes from these people. It doesn't come from terrorists. They are the terrorists. The Illuminati families are the terrorists. So all these things are their services. Let's just say no.
But if you reject that and you say no to that, and you say, no, I choose something better, I choose something higher, and you start refining yourself, you start living in love instead of living in fear. And if enough people catch on and start doing that, then we'll turn the world into a Garden of Eden again. They see this consciousness happening and they're fighting it with everything they've got. And so they're trying to turn it into a negative thing as opposed to a positive thing, which is really what's occurring. If you continue to operate out of fear and continue to operate to the ego, then you'll continue to be controlled and you'll continue to be scared, have the shit scared out of you, and you'll continue to not have a clue about what's going on in the world and around you, or even inside you for that matter. The main thing you have to fear is fear itself. If you get sucked into the fear, it's going to put you out of harmony with actually what's happening, as opposed to a part of what's happening. If you want to be a part of what's happening, then you will not obsess with fear. It's possible people in that frame of mind could even get left behind. On the other hand, if they open up and accept it and become a part of it, then they become a part of an amazing transformation that's getting ready to occur. I don't think mainstream media wants everyone to realize that there is a mass awakening taking place. But yet everywhere I go and everything I see points to it. Everywhere I go, there's this enormous amount of enthusiasm and interest in yoga, meditation, not just Eastern things, but philosophy, workshops and things that are about self-awareness.
People are opening their eyes and seeing what's being done to them. The Illuminati are afraid of losing all their power. So when 2012 arrives, they know that the energy grid, the evil, negative energy grid, which sustains them, won't be there to support them.
They're standing in front of a tidal wave saying, I'm not going to get wet. They're going to get wet, and they're going to be affected by this consciousness shift too, whether they like it or not.
Our concern is not to worry about the Illuminati at this stage. Our concern is to imbue our lives with bliss and love, because their time is up. It's over, and that's obvious. It's obvious to the awakened masses now. They're running for the hills, desperately trying to cling onto their empire. But we can conquer this like David conquered Goliath by standing up, making a stand responsibly.
You will and you are failing now. Your new world order will fall. Humanity will defeat you.
Confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.